Good Monday morning. Deuteronomy chapter 12. Your pattern of worship will change. Today, all of you are doing as you please because you have not yet arrived at the place of rest, the land the Lord your God is giving you as your special possession. But you will soon cross the Jordan River and live in the land the Lord your God is giving you, when he gives you rest from all your enemies and you're living safely in the land. Here at First Assembly of God, we're rebuilding community. Worshiping together is an important part of a healthy community. In community, we have shared privileges and interests and feelings and hopes and duties and aspirations. The Apostle Paul described it as one Lord, one faith, one baptism. Worship as a community requires that God be present with his people. Jesus promised that when we meet in his name, he will be there. Without the presence of God, worship is really a waste of time. For Jesus to be present in our worship as a community, that worship must be pure and scriptural. Verse 8 says, your pattern of worship will change. In the wilderness, while leading a nomadic life, no certain place could be appointed to God's people for observing the sacred rites. Everyone just worshiped in whatever way they could. But after they were settled in Canaan, that was no longer going to be the case. A certain order, even a fixed location, was determined for their worship. And when they'd passed over the Jordan, the Lord would give them rest from all their enemies, and the arbitrary forms of worship would cease, and all their gifts and offerings would be brought to the place that Jehovah God prescribed. Now remember, this is about worship as a community, not private devotions. Paul taught in 1 Corinthians 14 that scriptural public worship is decent and orderly. Now that being said, there is yet room for personal expression in public worship. Earlier in the chapter, the required sacrifices included a variety of medium, burnt offerings, sacrifices, tithes, sacred offerings, and offerings to fill a vow. But the one I love the most is voluntary offerings. Boy, I love that. I love to see voluntary offerings in public worship. Certainly there are sacred times devoted to repenting of sins, but voluntary offerings, they come from a place of joy. The tone of joy should characterize public Christian worship in anticipation of our Lord's return. Paul told the Philippian church, always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. And to the Colossians he said, let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. Today is Holy Monday. Easter's coming. Let's worship together.